Hi, good morning, everyone. A very good morning to everyone. So thank you for taking the time off to start this morning. So we will begin the session now. So first off, we are very happy to invite Dr. June Goh, ACWO President, to give a welcome address. So Dr. June, please.
Distinguished ACWO board members and guests, delegates from ASEAN member states, SCWO members, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning, my dearest friends. I'm most honored to welcome you to the ACWO Masterclass and have you all here today while the pandemic still impacts our countries. With the use of technology, we had our first virtual ACWO board meeting very effectively, and now we're having this masterclass virtually as well. We had initially planned to have the masterclass together with the SCWO International Women's Day Gala Dinner in March earlier this year. Sadly, all impossible in these COVID times. For some who may not be aware, the ASEAN Confederation of Women's Organizations, ACWO, comprises of the National Council of Women's Organizations in each ASEAN member state. Our ACWO Masterclass today is in line with our mission, which is to coordinate and act as a confederation for national women's organizations of the ASEAN member countries to secure reforms for equality in human rights, status, and opportunities, to urge women of the ASEAN member countries to realize and accept, to promote cooperation, peace, and understanding, and to increase mutual support amongst women. We are also to participate and cooperate in constructive efforts for national and regional development. We also carry out studies, research, and training programs relating to women, children, and the family, and provide a forum for the exchange and discussion on issues relating to the advancement and welfare of women. This masterclass is based on the ACWO Vision 2025 statement. The ACWO Vision statement was discussed and crafted after our first board meeting last year. I must say that the areas the board chose to focus on have become so vital in these times. The three topics that will be covered in this masterclass: advancing ASEAN's smart nation cities, enhancing quality of women's lives in aging, and women and entrepreneurship, were chosen by the ACWO board members as the shared vision and goals. We must seize the opportunity brought about by advances in science, technology, and innovations in order to harness the potential of women so that we can be relevant and thrive in the new ways that we have to work now. From meeting online, trading online, going cashless, so many ways. Also, recognizing that ASEAN is fast becoming an aged region, we intend to promote active aging and financial security among older women to ensure that women have the necessary resources and support from their family and community to age well, physically, emotionally, financially, and in this current pandemic, even technologically. Finally, we intend to elevate women entrepreneurship to new heights, illustrating innovations as a tool for empowerment, all important in ASEAN's inclusive growth. Our presenters have a wealth of experience and are well-versed in their respective topics. It is such a privilege to have them at the ACWO Masterclass and to hear from them over the next 2 days. I'm looking forward to the presentations and hope that it will be beneficial to all of you here. I would like to thank all our presenters for sharing their wisdom and their precious time. This masterclass today reflects our determination and commitment to work with women across all ASEAN member states. A great step towards our shared vision and goal and a crucial initiative relevant to the times. I cannot emphasize enough how each and everyone in ACWO carries an important responsibility and role in the advancement of women. As the national coordinating body for women in each of our countries, we all play a pivotal role in advocating for women from all segments of society. I hope that this masterclass will equip you with the knowledge and inspire you to empower and advocate for the women in your countries. Have an enjoyable and a fruitful time. Thank you. Actually, next, we'll be introducing a very good friend of ACWO and also SCWO. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jungo. So now we are very honored to have Mr. Richard Tan here today, who is the Singapore focal point of the ASEAN Committee of Women. So let's welcome Mr. Tan to please say a few words at this inaugural event.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Jungo. I'm indeed very honored to be a friend of ACWO and SCWO. So let me start my address. President of ACWO, Dr. Jungo. I think President of Singapore Council of Women Organization, Juni, is probably also on board, and members of ACWO and SCWO. It is quite an honor for me to be in this virtual space with so many passionate women leaders. Some of you, or most of you, I have met in Myanmar for the first time when I was invited by June to attend the General Assembly. I was really very inspired by so many of you, your passion and the energy that you have. I thought we should see what we can do in ACW to advance the ACWO itself and in terms of its profile, and to see how we can help as ACW to make ACWO relevant not just to ACW but to many other organizations in ASEAN. So I'm here today in my capacity as the ACW Singapore focal point to support ACWO under the presidency of Singapore. ACWO is a wonderful network of national women organizations. As an ASEAN accredited entity, your network can shape, you can influence the public, private, and people sector in all our ASEAN member states. And there is so much that ACWO can do. Since the last time I spoke at the 18th ACWO General Assembly in Naypyidaw, that was in 2018, ACWO has taken a very huge step forward with a vision statement which was supported by ASEAN leaders at the 35th ASEAN Summit. It is extremely rare that an ASEAN accredited entity receives the support of ASEAN leaders at the summit. Usually the ASEAN Summit only look at document issued by various governments. But in this case, it's such an impressive vision. Every senior official committee and ministerial committee along the way endorse it all the way up to the summit. Now this itself is really a great achievement, a milestone that ACWO can be justifiably proud of. A vision statement has to be ambitious, but it also needs to be focused. ACWO vision statement has these two important elements. And this masterclass will equip ACWO members with the knowledge and the roadmap to implement strategies based on the three focus areas in your vision statement. But I want to assure you that ACWO will not be alone in your journey to realize this vision. To advance smart cities, ACWO could work with the ASEAN Smart City Network, ASEAN, which is a collaborative platform where cities from 10 ASEAN member states work towards the common goal of smart and sustainable urban development. So to enhance the quality of women's lives in aging and to focus on women and entrepreneurship, ACWO could work with the ASEAN senior official on health development, the senior official on social welfare and development, the ASEAN Commission on the promotion and protection of rights of women and children, and the overall ASEAN Intergovernmental Commission on Human Rights. I would like to encourage ACWO to work with all these ASEAN bodies. Now, beyond ASEAN, ACWO should also consider working with relevant UN bodies and ASEAN dialogue partners such as Australia, Canada, China, EU, Japan, New Zealand, Korea, and the US. Now, I know for a fact that these countries have deep, deep interest in women issues, and they will certainly welcome ACWO partnership to also serve their agenda, right? At the same time, help in serving ACWO's agenda. And ACWO's relevance in engaging ASEAN bodies and beyond ASEAN will increase, and the profile will be elevated in the region and beyond. The power of ACWO is actually your network of national women organization. That is the wonderful organization that we should leverage on to advance the cause of women. You can mobilize intellectual and operational resources very quickly to address all the issues of concern to women and add tremendous value to the protection and advancement of women, and make ASEAN community a more inclusive region for all. So let me wish ACWO all the best in its journey ahead in realizing the ACWO Vision 2025. Thank you.
Thank you, Evangeline. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, June, for the opening speech, and welcome everyone, ASEAN countries. I am Jacqueline Chua. I am a member of SCWO board member, as well as president of Financial Women's Association. Today, I'm really very honored to moderate. I'm your moderator, and I'm going to help you keep this in context of what does the smart city look like from a gender perspective, a gender lens. We have women here who are amazing people who have taken time out to actually be part of this conversation. And I would like to, at the end of the session, feel that all of you have put your voices together to look into the Smart Nations dialogue. Smart Nation is a effort to actually utilize the digital technologies as well as info and communication technologies that we have right now, and it's catalyzed major growth in the economies. However, from the perspective of the women in various countries, there is a very wide gap which we need to try and address. As a community of women from ASEAN countries, ACWO strives to be a champion on empowering culture in order for you all to manage work, family, and lead a fulfilling life. So before I, as a moderator, you will be discussing various aspects of the smart city concepts, but now I would like to actually present introduce Anne Lochoff, who is the former Senior Advisor for UNDP Global Center for Technology, Innovation and Sustainable Development. What she will provide is to give you a deeper understanding of smart nations and its advantages. It is important to understand the concepts, the overview, especially from a woman's perspective, so that we can actually aid you in your discussions in the breakout rooms later. Anne herself has been rated one of the top global influencers in tech innovation in cities, featured in 2016. Apart from being an ex-advisor for UNDP, she was a former chair and business advisor at New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, Beachlands Network, Southeast Asia. And prior to that, she was executive director for McCain Erickson, which she was leading a global team managing the MasterCard accounts for APAC, Middle East, and Africa. Certainly a lady of many talents, and I am very happy to pass it over to Anne. And thank you, Anne, for being on this conversation with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Good morning, everyone. Thank you to the ACWO and SCWO community for the opportunity to share with you today. This is indeed a privilege. The first part of my talk will aim to give you a definition of the evolving concept of a smart city and what a smart nation is. The second part will look at the objective of how a gender lens can be applied to a smart nation building in cities. I will share insights, facts, and trends in 4 key areas, namely female entrepreneurs, policy, food security, and legal frameworks. It serves an inspiration for our breakout sessions later on. For the purpose of the talk, I have made sure that the information informs those who have never heard about smart cities or have a small amount of understanding of it, and those who are experts in the field. The concept of a smart city comes from many sources, depending on which sector you talk to, but will always be defined by a very specific point in time. 2008 to 2009 has been chronicled in history as the year of the global financial crisis. However, to better understand the evolution of a smart city trend, 2008 and 2009 is also known as the year that the global urban population surpassed the global rural population. This historic shift in urbanization catapulted the importance of cities and how technology can make them better. Urbanization projections show that the world's urban population is expected to increase by 84% by 2050, from 3.4 billion in 2009 to 6.3 billion in 2050. To project forward the trend by 2015, the smart cities concept evolved to integrate technology into all aspects of a city, as this description from Frost and Sullivan actually shows. From a private sector perspective, however, the concept of smart cities was accepted and projected to be a lucrative sector for business, as these pre-COVID projections from 2018 show. For years, the focus was primarily on the infrastructure sectors within a city so that they could leverage technology. However, a key element in the design process was not being prioritized, namely the people in cities. New definitions for smart cities started to emerge, focusing on the importance of the people living in cities, or the smart citizens. As Richard mentioned, at the 32nd ASEAN Summit on the 28th of April 2018, the ASEAN leaders established the ASEAN Smart Cities Network. The network is a collaborative platform where cities from the 10 ASEAN member states work together for the common goal of smart and sustainable urban development. In light of the opportunities and challenges posed by rapid urbanization and digitalization, the primary goal of the ASEAN Smart Cities Network. Somebody needs to go on mute. There we go. Perfect. The Smart Cities Nation is to improve the lives of ASEAN citizens, use technology as an enabler. By focusing on the people, it adopts an inclusive approach to smart city development that is respectful of human rights and fundamental freedoms as inscribed in the ASEAN Charter. The networking of smart cities across ASEAN also contributes to enhancing mutual understanding across cultures. The role and importance of cities to nation building then gave rise to the concept of a smart nation. A smart nation is where people will be empowered to live meaningful and fulfilled lives, enabled seamlessly by technology, offering exciting opportunities for all. It is where business can be more productive and seize new opportunities in the digital economy. SDG 11 has ensured that aspects of the environment and sustainability are also considered. In late 2019 and early 2020, the European Union created a community to look at cities through a gender lens. Their view was that despite the leaps and bounds made over the past century, there is still a long way to go to achieve global gender equality. Inequality still impacts the way women and girls travel, work, play, and live in urban environments. So today I would like to highlight 4 areas that will allow us to discuss how women can impact the process of smart nation building in cities. Number 1, supporting female entrepreneurs. At the height of the recession in 2009, Dell, the global technology company, started brainstorming ways they could help customers continue to grow and influence the global economy. 2 realities inspired them to focus on women entrepreneurs. 1, entrepreneurs are the force that leads the economy. 2, women business owners in 2009 made up the 5th largest GDP, but were still struggling to access the capital, networks, and resources they need to take their businesses to the next level. COVID is once again putting enormous strain on our economy. So how can we use the indicators that Dell has been tracking for many years to report and to set up female entrepreneurs for success? My co-presenter, Gina, will be sharing success stories later. Number 2, I really want to encourage to create gender responsive policies. In its COVID response action, the IMF provided support to 105 countries to integrate gender into economic analysis and policy making. In some countries, they made a gender equality strategy a condition for IMF financial support. If you are able to influence policy, what is your strategy for ensuring gender responsive policies for ASEAN? Number 3 is to create food security in cities. And we were discussing this earlier. If you look at all of the segments that have been given as a definition for smart cities, feeding cities was never included until a few years ago. The Secretary General of the UN, post-COVID, viewed food systems as such a key area of focus that he will be convening a food systems summit in 2021. I'd like to feature the Philippines here. The Philippines has new laws under the Urban Agricultural Act of 2013, which mandates the Department of Agriculture to promote the use of urban agriculture and vertical farming, aimed to ensure food security and rejuvenate the ecosystem. These laws are also mandated that abandoned government lots, buildings owned by national and local governments should be used for growing crops. And number 4, we need to review our legal frameworks that allow for a gender lens on city planning. The recommendations for these laws and policies are that they are, the UN Women's Global Flagship Initiative, Safe Cities and Safe Policy Spaces, has 4 key outcomes, one of which is to develop and implement comprehensive laws and policies. The recommendations for these laws and policies are that they must be specifically orientated around preventing and responding to sexual violence in public spaces, capacity building, and awareness raising help for local authorities, women's groups, and community partner advocates, legalization and monitoring of the application, including through the dedication of adequate resources. That's a lot. In Singapore, the Future Law Innovation Program is an industry-wide initiative to drive innovation and encourage the adoption and invention of new technology amongst law firms, legal departments, and legal tech startups to create a vibrant legal technology ecosystem in Singapore. They bring together stakeholders from business, government, and academia to collaborate to develop new models for the delivery of legal services in the future economy. Thank you so much for your time. I look forward to the discussions in the breakout sessions.
Thank you, Anne. Just to summarize for the benefit of the members here, for the audience, there are 4 key areas that we have worked to make it simple for the discussions later on. First is how food security impacts smart cities. How can we look at the legal framework that supports women? Entrepreneurship is very important. If we can get some business going, women will have an income. And the infrastructure, notably different countries have different infrastructure. So we are going to proceed later on to discuss, but before that, we're very proud to actually have Gina Romero from Philippines. Before she was back in Philippines, she was also spending some time in Singapore. And she calls herself an unconventional entrepreneur and community builder. I call her a fireball. She's a founding member of the business network, and it's the Athena Network Singapore and APAC. That is in 2011. But most importantly, what she has done is to move forward, and her mission and her calling was to equip women entrepreneurs and professionals with technology skills to scale their business and careers. So what Gina did was she launched Connected Women Singapore in 2013 and Connected Women magazine in 2014. When she went back home to Philippines, she started to help women in her country. Amazing stuff was done. In 2017, she co-founded Women's Jobs, a social impact tech startup that matches talented Filipino women with meaningful remote work opportunities. So Connected Women runs a number of initiatives that provides technology skills training and online job matching that aims to impact 100,000 women in Philippines. They have received global recognition in categories of inclusive innovation, in the future of work in UK, and e-employment in Switzerland. She will be giving you a description from herself how this works in how she has set it up, and maybe perhaps sharing best practices that she can actually, that you can benefit and see how this can be implemented or discussed in your different countries. Without further ado, I'll pass it over back to Gina. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. And I'm so happy to be here. It's wonderful to see new faces and familiar faces. So thank you so much for sharing and spending this morning with us. I'll just share my screen. Is my screen visible? Can you see my screen now? There. Hopefully. Okay, so I'm going to share a little, oh, did my screen disappear? There it is. So I'm going to share some work that we've been doing here in the Philippines. I'm actually half Filipino, half British, and I was privileged to spend 6 years of my life in Singapore, where a lot of my transition into community building around digital skills transpired. So it's really been a journey for me, and a lot of it has been learning along the way, as many entrepreneurs I'm sure will relate with. So I'll share some of the things that we've learned and sort of how my journey evolved into the type of programs that we're doing right now in the Philippines. So I came back to the Philippines in 2016 with my family because my mom was actually a domestic worker who left her small town in the Philippines back in the 70s and moved to the UK. And she met my dad there. So my dad is British, and I spent most of my life in the UK. But I was surrounded by many Filipino families, or Filipino women especially, who had left their families behind, and Filipino men as well. But a lot of the time I spent my upbringing around those who had actually left the country for better opportunities. So a big part of my why and why I do what I do is because I want to create opportunities for women that are not sacrifices. And I think that for many, many years, women from everywhere have sacrificed career or sacrificed, you know, staying where they want to stay, or having to maybe follow their husband around to different countries, and often put their own career on hold, especially after they have children. And I think that with technology, it really is a game changer for women and gives us an opportunity to continue to pursue our career or our entrepreneurial dreams, despite the fact that we have other things that we may want to prioritize in our lives. So Connected Women was really created for that vision. We started with women entrepreneurs, and then we moved very much into the idea of not just entrepreneurship, because not everyone is an entrepreneur, but looking at technology for supporting women in different aspirations. For example, if they wanted to be a freelancer, or if they wanted to just be a part of a company, an employee, but also work from home or work remotely. And we started with the advocacy around flexible and remote work years before the pandemic happened. And for many people, it was a little bit difficult to comprehend why and how people could work just as effectively distributed across the world or across many places using technology. And now, unfortunately, you know, with the pandemic, many people are forced to work from home and use technology in ways that they haven't before. So I think that despite the many challenges that we're facing right now, I am hopeful and optimistic that this is a chance for us to rethink how we do things and build a more inclusive opportunity for women everywhere because of the increased importance of technology to be able to go about and do our daily work. So the background is really, when I was in Singapore, I had my helper there, and I was part of an organization. I'm very much a supporter of an organization called IDA that gives opportunities to Filipino domestic workers working in Singapore. Actually, not just Filipino, domestic workers working in Singapore to learn entrepreneurship and leadership skills so that the work that they put in and the years of work that they could potentially have a career or a business back home once they come back. And you know, having conversations with my own helper, Beth, and the fact that she had to leave her children behind when she was widowed, when they were still young, made me think that, you know, there was probably a lot of work that could be done here in the Philippines to empower women to have more opportunities to earn and be economically empowered. And when we looked at some of the data, bearing in mind that gender data is always a challenge to put together, some of the numbers that we found were that around 5 million women were probably out of the workforce, specifically because of family responsibilities or household responsibilities. And we felt that that was a real shame, bearing in mind that technology is really about bringing the jobs and the opportunities to people rather than people having to physically travel to where the jobs are. So in my mind, the concept of a city is changing because of the way that the internet is creating hubs that are outside of the traditional city sort of scape. And that's one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot lately, especially because of this topic. And of course, with the COVID-19 crisis, we have women, well, workers in general displaced all over the world, but women are very much impacted by this. And the fact that there is lack of economic resilience in vulnerable sectors means that we really need to create income generating opportunities and think about inclusive innovation so that no woman gets left behind. So we looked at this number in the Philippines of the women who are out of the workforce because of family commitments. And it's really a very heartbreaking scenario, actually, especially when you think about 1.23 million women who leave their families to work abroad. And again, I think that living and traveling and working abroad is an amazing opportunity, but work really should be an opportunity and not a sacrifice. And in too many situations, it really is just because of lack of choice, lack of opportunity back home, and lack of access to jobs and a viable living wage. So we looked at this as one of the angles that we were trying to solve. And we also looked at this reality in the Philippines, which is the terrible situation of traffic. Now, I'm sure that there are other ASEAN nations who can relate to this problem. Right now, it has eased, of course, because of the lockdowns. But I really genuinely hope that we don't ever have to go back to this situation again. It's a time for us to rethink the way that we move people around and how people get to and from work. And in Manila, it can mean really like a 3 to 5 hour commute one way into work. And imagine doing that every day, twice a day. You might as well be overseas, to be honest, because you don't see your family in the morning when you wake up, and you probably won't see your children when you come home from work again. So that's another heartbreaking reality. So before we launched our programs, we did a survey which was around women who were applying to get remote jobs, and lots of our assumptions were actually incorrect. One of the assumptions was quite interesting, in that although most of our applicants are looking for flexible work, they were still actually looking for full-time or part-time work as opposed to just absolutely flexible work. So that was one of the interesting takeaways from the survey. And another interesting takeaway from the survey was the fact that we had a very high range of educated ladies applying for remote jobs. So where we felt that the remote job upskilling would be a solution for those probably at the lower skilled section, bearing in mind that they still have to have access to connectivity and devices to even take part in this survey, But we had a lot of women who were looking to transition from corporate and traditional roles into online work, and they were exploring the option for freelancing. And it kind of makes sense when you think about it, because if you look at the age range, you know, we had a big age range of 20 to up to 60 plus years old applying for jobs. But the median age is very much those sort of family starters or those with young families. And the three biggest reasons that they stated as wanting to look for online jobs was because they felt that they didn't have easy access to jobs in their location, especially if they'd moved out of cities and back to provinces. And of course, family commitments. I think that's pretty much a global concern. In the US, according to Sheryl Sandberg's LinkedIn, 43% of women drop out of the workforce when they have children. So if you think about that in the context of your own country, how much talent are we losing just because the jobs are not easily accessible to those who have the talent to do the jobs? And again, the third one was actually not enough suitable jobs. And I think that's probably very much linked to where they're located, because we all know that globally, businesses and startups talk about the lack of talent as actually being one of the challenges that they have in their business. Of course, this was pre-COVID. So we look at this through the lens of inclusive innovation, and our vision is really to make sure that no woman is left behind as we transition into a more digital economy. So we started with the center of these three pillars. Most of the programs that we've developed have just been based on a need that we've discovered in our community, or something that our members ask us for because they need it, as opposed to sort of brainstorming on ideas of what we can create and then pushing it out there to see if anyone would be interested in it. So the online jobs focus was really because the Philippines is actually the sixth fastest growing freelancing market in the world. So that's pretty incredible. And the expansion of our connectivity capabilities here in the Philippines is very fast. So connectivity is improving all the time. I know that my local kababayans, my country women and men will complain about connectivity in the Philippines, and it isn't great, but it's enough to do the things that we need to do to be productive and work online. And I've been here for 4 years now, and I've experienced different connections in different parts of the world. So I think we can do quite a lot already with what we have, and this is only improving. And then of course, one of the things that we've developed recently is because despite the fact that we have so many talented and even overqualified women looking for online jobs, there are so many that are effectively not employable. They don't have the skills, they don't have the experience, and they don't even have the understanding of the opportunities in the digital economy. So we shifted our focus after COVID happened because we're concerned for these women in vulnerable sectors that just have no means to earn and no understanding of digital at all, whether that's digital literacy or even economic opportunities through online entrepreneurship or online jobs. So we don't really have the solutions or all of the solutions yet. I think that part of our entrepreneurial and innovative spirit at Connected Women is really trying to understand and ask a lot of questions around where the women are really needing help, and trying to understand how we can develop with partners solutions that can help them. But we definitely are quite tireless and relentless in our pursuit of our impossible vision, almost impossible vision, which is to ensure that no woman is left behind. The way that we've launched, so it was quite an interesting thing that happened, because I came back in 2016, having spent 6 years in Singapore, with the idea that I would build a job platform, and the job platform would then match entrepreneurs and women job seekers, Filipino women job seekers, to businesses globally. And like most plans, it didn't really go as we had intended. So the jobs platform was challenging for us because we had oversupply. So we had more job seekers than we could handle. In fact, for the first year, we had so many job seekers that most of what we did was working with the job seekers. And we didn't have time to really focus on developing the demand side of the platform, which was the entrepreneurs to hire. And the other thing that we uncovered was that despite the fact that there are many, many skills in the Philippines, there was still a need to have some transitionary training for those who were transitioning from traditional offline jobs into online jobs, because the culture, the way that you work online, the way that you use tools and everything is very different. So if you're not a seasoned online worker and you need to learn how to transition effectively into an online job, there were some gaps we felt in soft and hard skills. And so we focused on that. But what kind of happened in almost an organic and incidental way was the growth of the community. Because we were active in running programs in partnership with corporate partners like Facebook, providing digital skills for women, the Connected Women sort of name, I guess, got out there. And so our community grew very quickly to around 75,000 women. 76 of those are led by volunteers who run chapters across the Philippines. And actually we have chapters outside of the Philippines as well, in countries like Pakistan and Singapore. And so we look at our community as the online workforce of the future. Whether these women have an aspiration to run businesses, whether they have an aspiration to build online careers or transition to freelancing and self-employment, or maybe a combination of these things, because many of our ladies will have a job, but they'll also have an online business on the side with different priorities across those different activities. But we really see this as the online workforce of the future, and women are a huge economic force given the opportunity. And so some of the programs that we've run here, just so that you might be able to get some ideas about what might be relevant in your own local country and city. We set up, first of all, the community, the Facebook community. We didn't have an intention, in fact, to run offline events, because I have been running offline events in the UK and Singapore for many years. And when I came back to the Philippines and I saw the traffic situation and how difficult it is sometimes to move around, I decided that it would be best to do everything online. So we started with a Facebook community that grew, and it was really there to connect people to each other so that they could engage with each other. And our principles are share, connect, work, and learn. But what actually happened was the members themselves started asking if they could meet each other in their local towns and if we would run events for them, physical events. And my initial response to that was no. Connected Women is really a purely online community, and we're not going to be running anything offline. But the members themselves repeatedly kept asking us, can we have something offline? So my response to that was to say, okay, if you want to run offline events, then we will help you, but you have to volunteer to run it. And just to give a little bit of information, Connected Women is a for-profit social enterprise. So some parts of what we do are really run on a not-for-profit basis, like the meetups are run by volunteers, and we don't monetize that component of their business. But we do have some commercial partnerships as well. And we look to be sustainable, which is why we decided to be a for-profit social enterprise, because there are some areas of our organization that can actually provide commercial solutions. And so yes, so these members, they volunteer, and incredibly, we have 88 chapters that we're running physical meetups simultaneously every 6 weeks. So we provide the structure and of course the vision for Connected Women to empower our members to lead their own communities. And everything is centered around the idea of helping women learn skills for entrepreneurship, for their career, or for self-employment or freelancing. And then with our partners, we were very lucky to partner with Facebook. They have been an incredible partner for us, because we run a program with them that is from their policy program team. So we help women understand how to use the free Facebook tools so that they can grow their online business. And we also invite freelancers, because they might be business women who want to build their online presence so that they can grow their online shops or whatever it is that they're doing online. And then there are freelancers that want to work with entrepreneurs and help them grow their online presence. So we invite them along, and we've trained 3,000 women now, 2,000 on the ground across 15 cities in the Philippines. And we've trained over 1,000 women online this year when we transitioned online because of COVID. And of course, a big component is supporting traditional businesses, because not only do we have these aspiring online businesses that need to understand how to leverage online tools, but of course, very important to help those more traditional bricks and mortar businesses transition. And we partner with government So we have an amazing partnership with the Philippines Department of ICT. And what we do is we enable the content that we actually run at events to be pushed through their government portals. So the Department of ICT have centers called Tech for Ed centers. And these are like community government funded internet cafes. So if you're in a community and you need to get access to government services, or you need to get access to training content, or even basic digital literacy content, you can go to one of these centers and just sign in, and you can sit and use the computers in this center. And some of these centers are tiny. They just have like 1 or 2 computers, and some of them are huge in public libraries. And so this allows us to reach those women who don't necessarily have access to connectivity, and they don't necessarily have devices. Because every time we create a program, we always think about those who may not be able to access the program, and who can we work with, who can help us reach those women who would otherwise be excluded. And we worked with UNDP. I was very proud to have brought an event to Marawi City, which is where the unfortunate siege and Marawi crisis happened during the conflict in 2017. And these were women who were displaced because they had just lost everything in the conflict. And they now needed to think about how to transition their bricks and mortar, what used to be a bricks and mortar business, into the online space. And so most importantly, we inspired them that there is still something more that they can do, even without their physical premises, that they can take with them anywhere, and they can build it using technology, and still take the skills and the experience and the passion from their business and transition that online. And our new programs are the Elevate program, so helping women transition into virtual assistant work, because that's a very in-demand sort of skill, and it's something that women who have worked in the corporate world, who have had various different careers in the corporate world, can actually easily adopt and bring their skills from their past work into. And so that's one area that we see as a very key area for the Philippines, bearing in mind that every country has its different strengths and weaknesses. And the Philippines has very good skills in terms of customer service and language. So we feel that this is valuable to those global companies that need administrative assistance and help in growing their business. And Elevate IDA, this is something that's extremely close to my heart, because probably for about a year now, I've been lying awake at night in bed, trying to think how we can help those who don't have tech skills, and very difficult to empower those those women who don't have skills at all. And so we decided that if we could come up with a solution that anyone could do, a tech job that anyone could do with just the basic connectivity, basic device, and with the willingness to learn and willingness to adapt technology skills, then this would be a very wonderful project to start. Because once you tackle the most difficult segment to help, then everything from there on becomes a little bit easier. And we're really proud to have partnered with UN Women on that project. So we train women with absolutely no skills or experience in how to do basic data labeling annotation. So this is the data that is tagged and fed into machines so that the machines can learn from the data and become autonomous. So this is for artificial intelligence companies and machine learning. So very big, important part of smart cities is the artificial intelligence angle and the automation angle. But despite the fact that we have very intelligent machines and robots, they still need to learn, and it still requires a huge amount of manpower to actually train these machines so that they can do some jobs and replace some repetitive tasks that humans do. And this was successful. We've trained 70 women so far, and we're on track to train over 200 women this year in artificial intelligence skills. So our next big job is to actually help them transition into jobs. And so that's what we're going to be working on next year. And so these are the partners that we've been privileged to work with. And of course, social impact is always a priority for us. So the partners that we work with are aligned with our vision and social impact goals. And as mentioned, we were recognized for our work in inclusive innovation. So just as I wrap up, food for thought, I know that it's a diverse audience and we come from very many different backgrounds. So some of this may be a little bit conceptual for some of you, and some of this might be practical, and you might be getting ideas about how you might be able to actually implement this in your own communities. But I think something to contemplate for all of us later today and after this is, with the growth of digital jobs and online entrepreneurship disrupting traditional models and continuing to disrupt traditional models, how do we make sure that we provide the right frameworks and policies to support both the workers and businesses? How do we make sure that the smart cities actually positively impact women across all the different diverse segments, and we create inclusive opportunities for all? And how do we tackle the challenge of upskilling disadvantaged communities? Like, what are the different challenges that we might face, and how do we overcome those challenges to make sure that we really capture everyone in this new opportunity? And a lot of challenges in terms of regulation around these fast evolving industries like AI, a lot of questions around ethics in AI, a lot of challenges in telehealth, fintech, even micro business e-commerce. How do you regulate businesses that pop up everywhere online and don't even understand the concept of regulations like registering their business and business taxation? So these are some of the questions on my mind, and I think the most important thing, I think, from my point of view, is really to never forget those women who don't have access, and make sure that no woman is left behind.
Fantastic, Gina. Thank you very much. We are moving into the segment of question and answers. I do have a few questions for the presenters. And in the meantime, for the rest, if you have any questions, please feel free to write it on the chat. We'll pick it up. Starting for, there's a question from Marianne from Venezuela, if I'm not wrong. Her question was, did you apply any psychology or counseling program to encourage women and inspire them on the transition to become an entrepreneur? Pretty much so, focusing on the confidence. Women transiting from work, from doing housework, domestic work, being a mom, moving into the first step of thinking about, wow, I'm going to start a business. I'm going to sell my services. That's going to be value add. That's a very, very big jump. How did Connected Women help in this aspect?
So that's a very interesting question, because I find that women at all levels have this challenge. So I have worked with women who have never worked, never run a business before, and they have this sudden entrepreneurial seizure to just follow their dream and pursue this dream, and they will do it. And there are others that will have confidence issues and the ability to even get started. And that happens also at the highest possible level. So, women who are transitioning from very senior corporate roles with years of experience of managing, and now for whatever reason, they decide to transition into entrepreneurship, and now they also get stuck. And there are others that just sort of do it. So I think what we provide is not anything in terms of formal counseling, but we provide a supportive environment, and we voice this out. So that's actually one of my most common, so I do a talk called Tips for Women Starting Up and Growing a Business. And the number one is about confidence, having confidence in yourself. That's the first thing that I talk about. And I think it's a combination of your own negative voice and also external voices, right? So those people around you that often care about you very much, but will tell you not to do crazy things like quitting your job and starting a business. So very common in entrepreneurship. And I think a support network is the most important thing, because you surround yourself with people that will help you get started.
Excellent, Gina. I have another question. It's from Lina in Philippines. I will put it together in a more succinct to answer. You started Women Connected back home in 2016. It's been 4 years since. I'm sure the journey wasn't as glamorous as what we saw on the presentation. It was difficult. How did you do this? I'm sure you didn't do it alone. Specifically, the questions were more pertaining to how to advocate our government and leaders that they will take a look at the smart city concept. The second one was to equip grassroots and elderly women with ICT. I think all in all, it's basically how did you kickstart this? Who helped you? How do you build this ecosystem and to what it is today?
Well, I think much of it has been quite organic, to be honest. Like, I came with one very specific thing in mind that I wanted to do, which was build a jobs platform and just match Filipino women with online jobs all over the world. And in my head, it was that simple. And I think that's an entrepreneurial thing, right? You have this thing in your head and you're just going to go and do that. And nothing goes according to plan. Our jobs platform was not successful, actually, just because of we underestimated the demand side. I think it could be successful if we could put the clients on there, but we were so overwhelmed with the job seekers, the needs of the job seekers, that we had to kind of shift. And so I think, you know, it's an organic process, isn't it? Whether you're an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur in an organization or leading, you know, leader in a corporate or anything else, I think you do need a little bit of room for innovation and to be flexible in realizing when something isn't working. But most of the solutions that we have created have really been in demand by our community. We keep listening as much as we can to what communities are asking for. And most of the time, we don't even know how to create these solutions. So we keep talking about the problems with people that we feel might be able to help us co-create a solution. And I think that's so important, because there's no way that we would have been able to do these things without the partners that have worked with us. And you know, I think selecting the right partners is also very important, because when you grow a big community, you get a lot of partnership invitations, but choosing the partners that are very truly aligned with your vision helps create clarity around what you're trying to do. And I think that helps build momentum.
Yep. Thank you, Gina. Vision is the most important start of this journey for creating something meaningful. I want to move back to Anne. My question to you is, why do we need to have clarity in these 4 segments: food security, legal, entrepreneurship, and infrastructure, to support this vision statement or vision making? Maybe for the audience, it would be useful to understand this.
Thank you. Actually, Jack, you and I were chatting about this earlier. These 4 segments as I have monitored this trend over the last sort of 15 years, have been the segments that have been least attended to in terms of women. So if we really want to have a very strong influence on how our cities evolve, how they become technological or digitalized in the future, we really need to look at these aspects. And, you know, as we said, you know, the entrepreneurs are the heartbeat of a economy. COVID has decimated a lot of economies. If we don't support entrepreneurs right now, and specifically women, that is a key to us moving forward. Food security, we have to feed cities. It's a life-sustaining need. And if we are all moving into cities, how exactly are we getting our food into cities when we are restricted in terms of food systems with COVID? And the cross-cutting themes that I included are the legal side of things and policy side of things. This is where, as a multi-sector approach to smart cities, you need your government, you need your NGOs, you need your community bodies to really agree, so that private sector and others will come together to actually create a solution for smart cities. So it's key that if women want to influence the way smart cities are designed, these are 4 areas that are crucial to that.
Thank you, Anne. To sum it up in more layman terms from my perspective, in addressing issues of, I see the questions on being burnt out from endless hours of working from home, from advocacy with the government supporting more infrastructure and support, from the fact that, from the point of how can they be, how can the legal system facilitate in more setups that is more flexible for women, and also in terms of the overall work of entrepreneurship is an execution. So ladies, everyone, it's what you have from Gina is really the model that was executed. But when what we would like to help is to address it from take a step back and think, strategize, think and plan. Because once you start doing, you get confused with all the elements around. We are always besieged with all the noise and the elements. But what we would like to help is to focus on this discussion on infrastructure, on entrepreneurship, on legal, and on food security. Now, food security, I know there was a question on healthcare. Doesn't really matter whether it's healthcare or food security, but we took food security because largely agriculture and food is very important nowadays, especially during COVID times. We are suffering from supply issues, right, around ASEAN as well. So if you take away the word food security and put in healthcare, it applies the same. But it's not about executing, it's about now, how do we get there? How do we focus on these areas? So this is the challenge we all have, even in developed countries and emerging countries. Everyone has the same challenges because we women are doers. We want to get things done. We want to get it done. We want to make an impact. We want to help, but we forget that there's so many things around us that need to support us to get it done. Let me check on any other questions. Back to Gina. How successful do you think it has been to train women to do work they are trained for in a sustainable manner? This is from Dr. Karanjit Kaur, Malaysia. She was looking specifically with the example from Malaysia of Posat Internet to train women and communities in basic digital skills. I think may not have achieved the full impact desired as women begin to treat the centers more as a community center of probably chatter rather than actually thinking about making money. And from her observations, how does this compare to Philippines, and what is the success rate in Philippines?
That's a very good question. Thank you for that question. I think it's really challenging. In my experience of women's entrepreneurship space in general, and I have attended some regional events and been around a few different places like the UK and Singapore and the Philippines now. And it's a very diverse space, isn't it, entrepreneurship? I mean, it could be anything from someone who is crocheting baby clothes and selling them online, all the way up to people who are family conglomerate businesses who are, the younger person is now coming into leadership of that business. I mean, it's just such a diverse space. And once you have a women banner over it, everyone gets clumped together in the same room. And so I have been to women entrepreneur events where we literally have goat farmers and, and conglomerate women leaders in the same room. And so it's very difficult to have a coherent understanding of what all these different people are trying to achieve. So I think what I try to do, and this is actually challenging for us at Connected Women as well, is to be very clear about the aspirations that each woman brings when they come to these programs. Because one woman may just want to have a little bit of side income because she's bored and the kids are getting bigger and she just wants to try something out, and she doesn't have a very strong drive or aspiration towards making money. Maybe she just wants to get back into anything after being homemaking. But then others will have a very strong drive towards success or scaling or impact or whatever else. And it doesn't necessarily mean that those in the grassroots have less drive or more drive. It doesn't mean that a woman who just had a baby has less drive or more drive for her career, because the circumstances are so very different. So I think really the only way, I mean, we set a hard benchmark on jobs created, which is so hard to measure. But we do try and measure, you know, do they feel that they're more capable of getting a job following the training, and are they actually conducting activities towards getting jobs? And same for business. But I think getting to the heart of what their aspiration is in the beginning, because they often don't even know that. If you ask a woman, what's your aspiration for starting a business? They often don't know. So maybe the chatter and the community connections that are happening are just the first step for them to understand exactly where they want to take this.
Great. Dr. Jungo said, commented that with this lockdown and the current situation that we're in, it's a matter of survival. And it's true. That's why we're here. So the conversation, the discussion will focus, would like to bring you back to the idea of how can you think, how can you plan? The slides that you have seen just now will be made available to you so that you can actually use that as reference. And we would like you to go away with this information, but also make it useful to probably start something or improve, or even see how you can best get the measures, get the gaps. There is a question on challenges of working from home. While it's amazing that we can enable women to work from home, not every home is made the same. So we all know that everyone lives in a smaller place. The Wi-Fi may not be that good. The most important is that we have young children, and they can be really annoying at times. And we have to concentrate, right? So like everybody who does work, you know, you need to concentrate. A lot of them are suffering from burnt out, trying to juggle. It's no different from being at the work environment. Do you think, how do we address this? Has this surfaced in Philippines in the last 4 years as the Connected Women has grown, and if you see certain issues with this?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, juggling work and family is hard enough, regardless of where your work is located. So I think there are challenges with working from home and challenges with working in an office when you still have to manage the home. Certainly I know women who, because Connected Women is a fully remote team, we have always been a fully remote team. We have around 20 people in our team. And, you know, so there have been some challenges in the beginning as I grew my remote team. But I think there are a few different components, aren't there? One is setting expectations in your home around what is work and what is not work. So my kids are trained. I've worked from home from so long. They know if my door is closed that I'm working, and it would be very unusual that I would be interrupted. Whereas I speak with a lot of corporate leaders who are now online, and we have meetings, and it's quite embarrassing for them because their kids are, you know, piling in, and there's people knocking at the door, and they're visibly flustered. So I think there are some strategies around setting expectations, but then it also gets very complicated, doesn't it? Because it depends on how many people are in your home. It depends on, as you mentioned, your connectivity. In the Philippines, the first thing I experienced when I came back, where we lived in my husband's family home, we had chickens, not just one chicken, like 50 fighting cockerels in the lot next door that would immediately start crowing whenever I got on the phone. So it really just depends. But I think that companies need to also provide some kind of training, right? Because I don't think we're going to go back to traditional work anytime soon, and maybe hopefully never. So we do need to make sure that people are trained in how to manage work from home and how to stay productive, and really empower them to be able to remain productive and be able to do their work well, whether that's systems and tools, whether it's soft skills, or whatever that might be.
Great. Thank you. I have another question. It's probably Anne. Could you, this is a question from Dr. Jungo. How can we get governments to ensure connectivity reaches to those who need it critically? That is the financially disadvantaged for all rural areas. Are women groups advocating enough for this around ASEAN?
Actually, I was going to come back to Lena from Philippines as well. She asked a similar question in terms of how to advocate governments. It's so important that we recognize the value of all of the women's groups that are on the call today, because governments are being pushed by UN entities, UN Women, UNDP, to advocate for women in cities and generally in smart nation building. So we need to actually use the groups that are on this call today to really gather the kind of insights and understanding of what women are needing in cities and relay that back to government. That is the power of the groups that are on the call today, and we really need to leverage that. From June's perspective, there is a huge amount being looked at in digital inclusivity and financial inclusion for reaching, the sort of areas that need the most help now with COVID. Obviously, the UNDP, being the largest executional arm of the UN, is being redirected completely to actually focus on COVID. And the recovery after COVID. So there is a lot that is actually going on to actually help, and I agree with June, there is a sense of urgency because of COVID, and it is a survival mode, but we need to be advocating from our groups what is happening on the ground so that governments have a true sense of what is needed and where they can help and where they can activate the sort of support and resources that they have. There needs to be a sense of understanding that you as a group can approach governments because you are representing a very key segment of the population. So we need to recognize that you're not just a women's group, you are a representation of a very, very important segment.
Yes, truly. And to add to this, where we represent a very big segment of almost 50% of the population, where the respective governments are unable to support in resources, they should be able to clear the obstacles or make the policy simpler or give the licenses or whatever respective land licenses and availability of any infrastructure more simply, and hopefully the application to get access to whatever they need to do is simpler for people in the rural areas, because they need to get it faster. We are aware, and in terms of education and application, they can do the job, but the bureaucracy of government can really be daunting, even in Singapore.
I would agree there, and this is why my presentation tried to incorporate all stakeholders. So that's private sector, that's NGO, that's development agencies, that is government, that is women's groups. Everyone has to actually take responsibility and come together, because usually the private sector has resources and money. Government has the policies and the laws and the control over that. The communities and the NGOs have the distribution networks. And the women's groups have the insights and the knowledge that is so desperately needed to circulate to those other parties. So it really is a multi-stakeholder approach that is required. So I as much as I would want to advocate government, they're not the only ones that have all the solutions. We can't we can't always run to them. We need to involve more parties.
Excellent. I want to go back to that point. Remembering that we are all distribution channels, all the women entrepreneurs are part of a distribution network. And the community are the people who are passionate, who really want to get involved, because it's income to them, it's a livelihood. And moving it back, the government are just policymakers, lawmakers, and they have the power to keep it simple, straighten it out. When it comes to the funding and all that, that comes from actually corporate sponsors and perhaps some of, I missed out that one, Anne, if you could help me on the
Private sector
infrastructure.
actually have a lot of resources.
Yes.
And yes, funding. I mean, government has a certain amount of funding, but it doesn't necessarily always stretch as far as it needs to. But there is an incredible amount of resources and knowledge that is sitting in private sector that can be utilized. And the private sector is understanding this better in how they partner and put together multi-stakeholder partnerships for smart cities.
Thank you. I have, back to Gina, I have a question from Vietnam, and Hien, pardon me if I got your name pronounced incorrectly. Gina, have you ever worked with vulnerable women who are ethnic minorities or women who are with disabilities to help them find suitable online jobs? Could you share some experiences or strategies?
So I think that ties in with our Elevate IDA program. I mean, over the years of running the programs for those women who already have skills and experience, there are so many that reach out to us and ask us if we can help them find a job. And, you know, just a little bit of exploration in terms of their background tells us that they're maybe 2 years away from being employable, you know. I mean, that for me is the hardest segment to work with, those who really have nothing to work with apart from their own passion and desire to advance themselves. And that's a great start. And that's what we need now. But you know, there were so many ladies like this that I come across that have so much potential that I literally would stay awake at night trying to research and find out what other countries were doing for these segments. And, you know, most of this we didn't invent. Most of these are based on inspiration and programs that we've seen that are happening out there. And countries like, organizations in countries like Africa and India have done a lot of work already in trying to figure out how to upskill. And so we found some other sources of inspiration that we sort of looked at and said, well, this could work in the Philippines in some ways. It might have to be adjusted and adapted according to the strengths that we have here and the infrastructure that we have here, but it's something that might be able to work here. And so our goal with Elevate IDA was to create a program that anyone could do. And I know people that are working in similar impact sourcing space where they work with very specific groups. So there are some that work with, I think, those who are challenged in different ways. And there's one group that works with youth who are on the autism spectrum. So that's their specific focus, is youth on the autism spectrum, and they design their jobs and their projects around jobs that they can do very well. And so if you think about it, you know, it really is a matter of looking not at the disabilities that a person has, but really what are their special abilities, right? Because everyone will have special abilities. And so really try and look at what programs and opportunities are out there that are already working in other countries or organizations that you might be able to adapt in your community. Right.
Excellent. Finding the role that supports your skills, finding the role that supports your life phase. And this is what we are trying to focus on for the respective countries. Different countries have different challenges, and we understand. And with this, I would like to draw this to a close for the Q&A only and move on to the next session. The next session will be a breakout session for you to, on areas that could be feasible for you to discuss on creating a smart nation concept. All right, so I will pass it back to Evangeline, who will handle the administration.